I'll say.
That's okay. That's all right. If we're ready, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 9:02. We'll do a roll call. Amber, if you could take attendance.
Eva Bermuda Zimmerman.
Present.
Isha Canada.
Present.
Adrian Cochran.
Present.
Marie Cole Johnson. Don't believe Britt Marie has joined us yet. Does anyone else see her in the room with us yet? No, I do not see her just yet. Daryl Dzinski, I do not believe has joined us yet. Josh,
Present.
there you are. Hi, Daryl. Good morning. Josh will not be joining us. Sheila Hummel.
Present. Welcome.
Luciano.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Present.
Alexander Marcelino. Has Alex joined us this morning? I do not see Alex has joined us yet. Fran will not be joining us this morning. Paul Petamianos.
Good morning. I'm present.
Good morning. John Scott. John, can you confirm you're present?
Oh, I said here.
Thank you. Mike
Sorry.
Soltis.
I am here.
Thank you. Molly Weston Williamson.
Here, good morning.
Good morning. And Justin Zartman.
Present.
Thank you all. We have a quorum.
Good. We'll go ahead and move on to the review and approval of minutes. I'll call for a motion to approve the December 9th, 2021 minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion.
So I'll second.
Made by Holly and Paul. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries.
I'll abstain.
I abstain.
I was
Okay. I heard two abstentions.
Mike
Okay.
abstains.
And Justin abstained.
Okay, so we got Mike, so that still passes with two abstentions. Very good. All right, we'll move on to the update on claims administration. I'm actually anxious to hear about this as we've rolled over into the first of the year. Andrea will provide us with an update.
Actually, Amir is going to provide us with an update, but I do not see him, Amber. Okay. All right. So give me a moment and I will do that. Amber, do you see my screen?
Ken?
Okay. Let me just do a few things, get some stuff out of the way. All right, so let's just start by showing you the number of claims that have been created by year. AFLAC, through the use of Salesforce, is able to provide us with up-to-date numbers, usually within a few hours every day. So you can see in the month of December alone, when we opened the claims administration process to accept applications, we got 5,200 claims in that first month. We are now receiving up to 4,000 claims this month. So we are closing in very quickly on the 10,000 claim mark as of yesterday. Here's the claims breakdown. Most of the claims are for continuous leave. So that would be one's own serious health condition. Well, let me finish the continuous claims first and I'll jump to the other one. So the majority of the claims are for continuous leaves, or what we call block leaves or reduced schedule leaves. So they are for blocks of weeks of leave at a time. There are fewer leaves that are intermittent leaves and even fewer that are other types of leave. So here on the lower right quadrant of this chart, you can see that most of the claims are for an employee's own illness or injury, and they're followed very closely in combination with pregnancy, childbirth, and bonding. This is actually a statistic that has flipped because last year, well, a whole month ago, when we opened up the claims process, we actually had almost as many claims for childbirth and bonding combined as we did for an employee's own illness. So we're seeing a change in the trend. We're also seeing a steady increase in the number of claims for care of a family member. What is really interesting and fascinating to us is that there is at least one claim in every category of leave that's available, including bone marrow donation and military leave. So we're really pleased that people are availing themselves of the benefit, and you can see the major categories in which they're being used. Now, let me move over to the quadrant where we discuss claim status. You'll see that there are a large number of claims that are pending, and there are about 609 claims that are approved. And here's the reason why that pending box is so big. We opened the claims process early, and people have up to 45 days to get us all of their documentation. So while you may have called on day one, and let's not forget we had 400 people call within the first 2 hours of day one.
Right.
That didn't mean, yes, we did. It didn't mean that they were actually ready to file their claim. That could mean that they were inquiring about a claim, they started one, they may not have had all of their paperwork, they may still have needed some other information. And there are a larger number of people who fit into that category than not, because it is a very new process for people. So this will lag a bit. We're expecting that this pending category will lag a bit in the first quarter until people get a better sense of what it is that they need to provide. And healthcare providers now then begin to understand what it is that they need to do. Because let's not forget that not only is paid family leave new, that the Family and Medical Leave Act has changed. So we do get a fair amount of employers that are still a bit confused about the changes to the Family and Medical Leave Act that is new to an entire population of employers that had 74 or fewer employees. So they're trying to navigate both. So we are seeing people still trying to make their way and navigate through the process. But with that said, for those claims that have all of the documentation, they are being approved within the 5-day window. So that part is working. We are also seeing that there's a little bit of confusion with how to complete some of the forms on the employer side. So Amir and his team are actually working with employers. Now, let me just talk a little bit about what canceled and denied means. So canceled means that a person has filed a claim, and then for some reason, they've changed their mind and they've decided that they're either not going to take the benefit now, or they don't want the benefit at all, or their circumstances have changed. And there were a fair number of people, more than we had thought, that had canceled claims for some reason. The denied claims, and we have been reviewing every single one of the denied claims, as we promised that we would, especially in the beginning, in the first 2 quarters of our work with AFLAC. Most of the denied claims are coming from places where the employer is not included in the paid family and medical leave covered employer category. So they are employers from municipalities and boards of education, who are not covered, or they may be calling from, not a lot, but a few from some state of Connecticut employees that are whose unions have not negotiated to be a part of the program. So those are the 3 large categories. The others that fit into the category of, I just realized that my video is off. I do just want to give webinars, it's just a habit. So I apologize. I didn't even realize it wasn't on. Right, I apologize for that. All right, so the denied claims, as I mentioned, are those that have been filed by people who don't work for a covered employer. Those are the vast majority of them. People who have not made the 23-25 in that highest earning quarter, because we are still feeling the effects of significantly long periods of unemployment where people have not met that 23-25 threshold, or they're applying for benefits outside of their benefit window. We've seen a lot of this with the pregnancy, childbirth, and bonding for parents who have welcomed a child into their family, and maybe the mother is now seeking leave that's related to pregnancy and childbirth, but they're outside of that window. Or they've had their child enter their family more than a year ago, because bonding is only available for 12 months after the time that the child is born or enters your family through adoption or foster care. So that's really what makes up the category of denied claims. I could go on and on because there's a lot of data, but let me go here to how people are filing their claims. You can see that the vast majority of the claims are filed through the website. This seems to be the preferred method, even though we do have a fair number of people that do call. You may have remembered before we had email, we had snail mail, we had other methods, but it caused a lot of confusion for people. And we had applications coming in all kinds of ways. And so we decided to streamline it. And this seems to be working a lot better. And we're able to get back to people more quickly. So we do have people who are filing by web, and then they're calling to inquire about the status of their claim. And that's a cycle that actually works very well. So that was in December, and that really hasn't changed at all. And I talked a little bit earlier about the leave types. The continuous leave, the intermittent leave, and the reduced schedule leave are really the three primary leave types that people are filing for. You can see that the vast majority, especially in December, were leave types. The leave types were primarily continuous leave. We talked about the leave reason. Let me go a little bit to the breakdown by gender. So because you see that the numbers correlate, you can see that the pregnancy, childbirth, and bonding numbers directly correlate to the vast majority of the claims being filed by those who are female biologically or identify as female. That's what we said, the people that identify as female. We have some male, and then we have the rest of the category, which is either unknown or non-binary. That is pretty much what I have right now in terms of what we're looking at in terms of claims. I'll stop sharing and ask if anybody on our board has any questions. I'm sure I have a slide somewhere that can answer it, but I realize we don't want to be here all day going through claim slides, so I'll just hit the highlights. Okay.
Andrea, this is Sheila Hummel. I have a quick question, being new to the board. Bonding, how is that different from foster care? Or I think on the spreadsheet there was pregnancy.
Yes.
So if someone wanted to know more about bonding, what would the definition be?
So bonding there's a specific definition, but generally it's the ability to take time to form a physical and psychological bond with a child that is new to your family through birth, adoption, or foster care. So there is really no distinction as it relates to bonding as to how your family is all the same.
Okay. So if someone's out, let's say if you have a baby, you could go either way. You could go with bonding, or you could go with the pregnancy.
Well, no. So that's a different question. I see Erin smiling because Erin loves to answer this question. So go ahead, Erin.
It all goes into the documentation required and the way the time can be used. So a person who has given birth to a baby has a medical incapacity for a period of time, often 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the nature of the delivery and if there are any other issues. So typically you would see the pregnant parent taking their serious health condition through that recovery period. And then they would, if they wanted to immediately stay home, continue to stay home, they would track it as bonding. Whereas the parent who wasn't pregnant would either take the time as bonding, or if they're married to the pregnant parent, they could be a caregiver for the pregnant parent. So it kind of goes into what documentation is needed, the way you can take the time, and also bonding can be taken anytime until the child has been with you for a year. And so there are some strategies for sort of utilizing that time in an effective way. So that's why you see the different definitions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Sheila, do you have any other questions?
No, I think I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. I see some hand raised, so I'll start with Eva.
Just wondering if we're still in trajectory for hitting that 10,000 mark. Does it seem like we're gonna, or that max? Are we gonna hit that max, or are we over? Are we under? I just wanted a little bit more information on that.
Oh, I imagine we'll hit the 10,000 mark before the end of this week or the beginning of this week. Yeah, the claims are coming in pretty steadily, and we're seeing the jump because this is the first month that benefits are actually payable, and benefits will be payable. The first benefits payment will go out next Tuesday, the 18th. So we expect the claims volume to continue. It will probably level out going into the second quarter. But this is
If it is-
what other states have seen, is that they see a significant amount of activity in the first quarter to 6 months of their program, and then it levels out as it continues.
Thank you.
I'm not on mute. Jesus Christ.
Okay.
The next hand I see up is Molly.
Thanks so much. So I just want to say first, thank you for this incredibly detailed report. It was incredibly helpful. And I do want to say I especially appreciate the detail on what's happening with denied claims, the reassurance that the authority is double checking each of those. I think that's really, really helpful. And it is really great to hear. And I think continuing to have this level of detail on reports, including I know, Andrea, you kind of got called in last minute to fill in, I think is going to be really helpful moving forward, especially because I think there's a lot of reasons that the folks who filed in December may not be a representative sample of folks we're going to expect
That's right.
moving forward, but we can only report on the data that exists.
Right.
I did have a question just about, you mentioned something about streamlining the claims processing. So you mentioned that there's still web claims and phone claims. Are you no longer accepting claims by mail? Like, what does the streamlining look like?
Oh, no. We still are. We still are, but it turned out that it just caused a lot of confusion for people because mail just by its very nature takes longer. And so they would mail it, and the mailing address is in another state because that's where the central mail process is. So they'll open it, they'll scan it, they'll send it in. It was just taking longer, and people were finding it to be a frustrating process. So we are in an iterative process of figuring out what works for people. We're also getting a lot of feedback on what we call the employment verification form, which is essentially the form that employers complete to give us the information we need so that we can know that, first of all, they know the person is taking leave, the length of the leave, the type of the leave. And we've had employers of varying sizes saying there are parts of this form that don't work for us for different reasons. So we're also in the process of revising that form based on the feedback that we're getting. It's just, as I always tell my team, it is that adage of best laid plans. We thought we knew, right? We gathered a lot of information from different places, but you don't really know until you start doing it and people start using it. So it turned out that we opened with all of the different ways that you can apply, but it turned out that people really preferred the web and they really preferred to call. So rather than have all those other ones actively open, it just seems like people just prefer to just pick up the phone and call. And so that is what we did. And actually, other states have told us that it's really better because it also helps to reduce the instances of fraud, where people just sort of, when you put your forms on the web, which some states do, but we don't, people from anywhere can just download them and make up forms and mail them in. And so they've said to us that if you can avoid doing that, it's really better that you have a person make personal contact with the organization that is administering the claim. And as you can see from the numbers, it does not seem to be a barrier. And where people call and say, I'd rather have my forms mailed to me so I can fill them in and mail them back, we're doing that too.
Got it. So you can still mail in a form, it's just you have to call to get the form.
You have to call to get the form. And that way we know. So if you call and you ask for the form, we ask for some very limited information. And then if we don't hear from you, that's what some of those cancel claims are. You'll get a little ping back that says, hey, we mailed you a form a couple of weeks ago. Are you still planning on filing, or did you just decide now it's not the right time? And that really helps us too.
Got it. Thank you so much. That's super helpful.
You're welcome. John, I'm sorry. I do have one more slide, but I'd like to answer the other questions that the board members have.
Okay, the next, Molly, are you all set? Okay, the next person I see a hand up is Adrian.
Thank you. And I agree with Molly, great report. I apologize if I missed something here, but I'm wondering, because I hear it so much, with the uptick in COVID and the number of employees that are out everywhere. If your staff is getting calls and questions regarding, I've exhausted all of my sick leave, I've exhausted if I had a sick bank, sounds like I already have my answer, and how paid, how can paid leave help me in this? I imagine you are seeing a lot of that.
We are inundated with those inquiries. I don't think there's any question about that. And what's frustrating for people is that having COVID or quarantining because you've been diagnosed or someone in your home has been diagnosed in and of itself is not a serious health condition. that rises to the level of qualifying for family and medical leave or a paid leave benefit. And so I had COVID in the early stages, like in 2020. And I really would have been very incredulous if someone said to me, you are not seriously ill, because I really thought I was seeing apparitions. I was really sick. So it's hard to explain to someone that when you're that ill that you don't have a serious health condition. But there's specific definitions for a serious health condition that our general counsel can recite by heart, and I cannot, even though I know them fairly well. And unless you meet those criteria, then it is not a serious health condition for either you to qualify for FMLA or for a caregiver to be able to access the benefit too. And they essentially have to be under the continuous care of a physician. You have to be hospitalized. It's a list.
This is what we, surmised and understood, in our organization. But you're right, people do not like that answer, and they don't feel that, I thought this was supposed to sort of bridge things and help me, and this doesn't help me because now I can't be paid. But I wanted to make sure I thought we were right in the interpretation. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. So I'm looking for, but there are a lot of boxes on the screen for Amir. Is he in the meeting? Has anyone seen him yet? Not yet? Okay.
Yes, he is. He was able to get in.
All right. So Amir.
He's on mute though.
Okay. Yeah. If you would come off mute and just, if there's anything you want to add. So Amir is the one that prepared the slides that we presented today. And we spent a lot of time with our third-party administrator really digging deeply into all of those categories that you saw so that we can have a better understanding of what makes them up and what's going on and really keeping a close eye on them. Amir, did you have anything you wanted to add? Then I'm going to go to the call center statistics for a moment.
I think all I would like to add is that, as you mentioned earlier, we are working with our vendor and continuing to monitor various areas to ensure that we have the most efficient process in place with the given scenario. So as Andrea pointed out, that pending claim volume looks high, but a lot of that is because people just have not responded to their paperwork, and we're hoping that it's going to start dwindling down soon. That's all I would like to share.
Okay. Adrian, did that complete your series of questions? Okay. The next hand I see up is Sal.
So I'd like to verify one thing and then make a statement. I already know of a situation where somebody is being threatened that if they take the leave, that there won't be a job for them when they come back. So my understanding is that the Department of Labor needs to be involved in that situation.
Yes, they do.
Okay, and the second is, can we remind employers not to do that?
We remind employers, yes, Sal, you're absolutely, we remind employers constantly not to do that. We actually fielded a question from one out of our legislators yesterday where someone was told that the amount of time that they had available for leave appears to be half of that 12-week period. What we don't know when people submit these inquiries to us is how much time they've already taken, because employers count their family and medical leave window differently. There's 4 different methods that they can use. So sometimes it's hard to understand, even as an employer, because the law may have changed, and it has, in the middle of a lot of people's FMLA leave. And so, in one instance, they may have had the 16 weeks in a 24-month period, and then 2022 comes, and now it's 12 months, it's 12 weeks in a 12-month period. And some employers are having a hard time really trying to understand that and reconcile that. Of the 110 webinars, and looking at Amber, that we've given so far, we admonish employers over and over and over again. Do not retaliate, do not discriminate, make sure you understand the law. This is how FMLA works. But we're going to do it again, since we have an entire series. Thank you. We have an entire series of webinars that we actually solidified yesterday that'll start again. And then there'll be another series that we'll be giving that will be with the Department of Labor. And that's specifically for employers, so they can have a very clear understanding of what they should be doing. And DOL will be joining us so that they can answer specific questions about how the changes in the FMLA law would work. I agree. It's tough, but we are supporting workers that come to us with those questions.
Val, does that complete your question?
Okay.
Okay.
Molly?
I do have a question myself. It wouldn't be me if I didn't ask a financial question. Do we have an idea yet of the value of the claims that have been submitted, and are they on par with some of the actuarial projections that we had put together prior to this?
Dave?
Good morning. So John, I could tell you right now, comparing it to actuarial results, it's still very early in the game. We haven't even made any payments yet, but as of our latest estimates next week on the 18th, we think we'll have about between $450,000 to $650,000 of claim payments going out that first week. Okay, and then we'll be monitoring that on a weekly basis. Like I said, it's still early, so looking for trends early on in the process. We have to wait and see till the dust settles, and then we can get something right. When we get something regular, we can see how it looks going forward. But we will definitely be monitoring that against our actuarial amounts and seeing how we're doing compared to that.
Molly, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, and I think Aaron half answered my question in the chat, but I just wanted to crystallize the COVID answer, where it sounds like the answer is just having COVID is not automatically a covered serious health condition, but if your COVID situation meets the criteria, for example, if you're hospitalized, then it can count. Is that correct?
Yes.
That's right.
You have to have a serious health condition because that's what our statute says. And we can't pay people who don't meet our requirements for a qualifying condition. And so I put in the chat the FAQ, which explains sort of how a person could meet the statutory definition of a serious health condition. And as Andrea said, it's essentially you're receiving some sort of actual treatment, whether in a hospital or through ongoing care by your provider, not over-the-counter drugs and rest and liquids.
Val, is your hand still up from last time, or do you have another question? Okay. Any other questions from the board? That sounds right. Anything else from you, Andrea?
Yeah, I just want to share the call center statistics if you don't mind. Okay. All right. Here is the overall call data. Thank you, Amir and Aflac, for helping us put this slide together. You can see that we're closing in on that 10,000 call received number, and almost 98% of those calls are being answered within 30 seconds. It does take between 10 and 12 minutes to speak to someone and walk them through the claims process, and that's about the average handle time that we've heard from other call centers in other states. People are on hold for about 3 minutes when the volume is very high, and you can see, obviously, Britt Marie has her hand up, and you can see the top 5 call reasons for intake are new intake, bonding, people checking on their claim status, especially those that have filed through the web, and to figure out what's missing. Everyone does get a case manager, and as they are submitting their application, they can be in touch with that case manager through text or email or calling to find out what's missing. You can see that most people are calling in the afternoon between noon and 4 o'clock. So that is where we are in terms of our overall call data. So I'm going to come out of this to see if anybody has any questions. I see Britt Marie has her hand up.
Marie, your questions?
Thank you. So actually, my question sort of goes back to a prior point that was made. I just want to get clarity on the sort of collaboration with the Department of Labor. Have they indicated how quickly they will be responding to concerns that are raised about retaliation or anything along those lines by employees?
We don't necessarily have a time frame. It's not like they're saying I'm going to respond in 14 days or 30 days, but they know it's a priority. And I can tell you right now that the online application, the online appeals process For those that disagree with the decision that's been made by the paid leave authority, or any claims for retaliation or discrimination, or an improper, an applicant perceives to be an improper denial of a family and medical leave request, can be filed right now. Those by statute can all be decided based on information that's provided on paper, and a person can ask for a hearing. But right now, I don't have a specific time frame. No, but I know that they're moving fairly quickly, and they've already hired staff, and that process is already moving along.
Thanks, Andrea.
You're welcome.
Okay, does that complete your questions, Britt? Yep, okay, hands down. Molly, I see your hand up.
Sure, thank you. I just thank you for that really detailed information, and particularly the most calls answered within 30 seconds is amazing. I just wanted to ask what hours the call center is open. Like, is it just open 9 to 5? Is it open longer? Like, when can you reach that call center?
Yeah, so correct me if I'm wrong, Amir, but I think it's open 8 to 8. Yeah.
And is it on weekends as well, or just during the week?
No, it's not open on the weekend, which is why we have the extended hours in the evening.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for the group? Andrea, is there anything else for your presentation?
No, there isn't. So I just thank you, and I want to thank Amir and his team for their extraordinary work and keeping everything on track.
I'm very impressed. First month, short call times and quick responses. That's very impressive. So, working in the insurance business, I've seen some real train wrecks out there, and this is not one of them. This is really good news. So I'm happy to see that. So awesome work, everybody.
Very glad to hear that. Not a train wreck. Thank you.
I imagine you can start breathing now, right?
Just a little bit. After next month, after next week, when our first payments go out, then I think it would be even a little easier.
Very good. All right, the next item on our agenda is the registration and contribution portal project update. So Jessica is going to give us an update on that.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone. Let me get my screen share going.
We can see your screen, Jess.
Thank you. All right, so here is an update on our program metrics. We currently have 125,490 businesses registered with the program. Contributions received or in transit, 304,385,747. We are up to 485 approved private plans. We currently have 291 open contact us inquiries. We have closed nearly 27,000 since the contact center began in September 2020. And in terms of TPAs and tax accountants, we have a total of 896 currently registered. Forgive me, at the top of the slide, I forgot to update this to say January, February, but this is the most current information. So our employer registration and contribution portal side, production support continues. We also have testing of the TPA amended return process for fully paid invoices going on. We're in the process of designing the payment compliance process. Completed reports to identify employers who are not compliant with payments is also ongoing. We have testing by a third-party vendor for security vulnerability going on. The DOL data has been loaded into our Connecticut Paid Leave platform, and we are preparing to load the DRS data into the platform as well, and implementing the process for employees to request reimbursements for overpayments of contributions. On the benefit and claim side, we are enhancing our website content for claims and appeals. We are implementing the claims payment process and the Connecticut Paid Leave appeals process, designing the process for coordination of benefits with DOL, and enhancing our internal processes for tracking incoming questions for small businesses and benefits questions as well. And from there, I will move into a brief outreach and engagement update. Our December website statistics, we saw a tremendous volume of folks visiting our website, not to be, not a surprise. 81,000 users, of those almost 76,000 were brand new. 130,000 sessions from those users and 407,000 page views. So on average, each person was looking at just over 3 pages. and we're staying on our site for just about 3.5 minutes. And then you can see the breakdown of new and returning visitors over in the pie chart. Looking at the 3-month trends, so our fourth quarter website statistics across unique visitors, sessions, and page views, you can see that we had a very substantial jump from November to December, and all of those, again, not surprising given the fact that that is when claims, the claims application process opened up. And then I thought this was interesting, so wanted to share, just looked at the demographic overview of our website visitors for the entirety of 2021. So you can see that the 25 to 34 age demographic is where most of our visitors came from, but followed closely by 35, 44, and 45, 54. And our breakdown was slightly heavier on the female side, close to 60%, and 40% on the male side. We continue to see our social media engagement rates rising, which is great, means more people are liking, commenting, retweeting, resharing, etc. So across Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, we saw the highest engagement rates, frankly, that we have seen in the month of December. And then just drilling down into the YouTube statistics a bit more, we had almost 10,000 video views on our YouTube videos in the month of December, compared to 3,600 in November and 2,400 in October. And the top content that people are interested in viewing are creating an account with Connecticut Paid Leave, the Employer's Guide, the Employee's Guide, and then how to submit a claim. As Andrea mentioned previously, we have just kicked off our winter webinar series we started this week on Monday. We have 3 different topics: the Small Business Owner's Guide to Connecticut Paid Leave, the Worker's Guide, and the Human Resource Professional's Guide. And you can see one of our marketing pieces over there to promote the webinars. There are currently 28 of them scheduled, and this is in addition to the partner webinars that we do with different trade associations and other groups that reach out to us and request something specific for their organization. All the webinar dates, times, and topics are available on the event page of our website. And we continue with our small business support. So just wanted to show on our Contact Us portal, for the Contact Us reason, we have added a drop-down option for small business support so that those can be routed directly to our team that supports small businesses. And we just sent out the email notification that you see over on the right-hand side to a group of small business owners to indicate where they can find all of the different downloadable resources that we have, which have just been refreshed with the most current information, as well as other resources they can access as they navigate this program. And then lastly, as our board members received an email from me earlier this week, we do have a press conference tomorrow in coordination with the governor's office. It will be held at the CTPL Aflac Customer Service Center in Windsor at 10 a.m. And we look forward to hearing from the governor, lieutenant governor, our labor chairs, Andrea and Teresa White, who is the president of Aflac US. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions on any of that data. Molly?
Yeah, thank you so much for that. That was incredibly helpful, especially I appreciate all the detail, which is really helpful. So you mentioned that there's a slightly higher number of private plans approved than when we last spoke. Do you have a sense of how many workers are covered by those and what the proportion is of the total?
I would defer to Erin. I see she just unmuted.
Actually have the total numbers. We continue to see relatively small employers. So I don't recall any sort of super large employers in the thousands getting new plans. And those new plans, any plan that was approved after December 1st does not take effect until April 1st. So some of those new plans are, it appears from the documentation that I received that they simply didn't get their plans in before December 1st, or they were kind of waiting to see what our final private plan rules looked like and then have decided to go ahead with it. But the deadline to be approved for effective date January 1st was December 1st. Now anything approved between now and March 1st will take effect on April 1st.
Got it. So it sounds like completely reasonably, you don't have the exact numbers at your fingertips, but it sounds like we're still talking about a very small proportion of the total workforce that's covered by private
Yeah,
plans.
I mean, we're still, when you think about the number of employers who have private plans compared to the number of employers in Connecticut, it's still a very small portion. And I think the workforce size is equally small.
Got it. Thanks.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, Jessica, thank you very much. All right, committee reports, policy and personnel. Daryl, you had a meeting last week?
Yes, just tricky with the unmute this morning. Apologize. Yes, thank you. Yes, we met last week on the policy personnel, and we discussed the additional policies the authority needs to create and implement with the immediate focus on the private plan auditing process.
Okay. Any questions for Daryl? Hearing none, we'll move on to, thank you, Daryl. We'll move on to outreach and engagement. Molly?
Okay, thank you. So I think we got most of the substantive report from Jessica a moment ago. The committee met in December to get an update. Particularly, I just want to commend all of the work that the staff has been doing in the lead up to December 1st and now the lead up to January 1st, that it was clearly a really significant crunch time in terms of both the strategic work, the earned media, all of that. So there's really a tremendous amount that's been going on, and we're looking forward to meeting again next week.
Any questions for Molly? Hearing none. Oh, and Andrea, I see your hand up.
I don't have a question for Molly, but I wondered if we could just carve out a minute or two to give Jacqueline an opportunity to, or maybe we can do it in new business, just a chance for her to report on her legislative work and some of the things that she's been doing.
Why don't we go ahead and do that now?
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, struggling to find the unmute button. Thanks, Andrea. It seems to be a trend today, but anyway, good morning, everybody. I've been doing a lot of outreach to the different caucuses. We're going to be doing some briefings for each of the caucuses to update them so they understand. Oh, and I'm sorry for those, the caucuses meaning the different, I don't want to say branches, but groups in the legislature, House Republicans, House Democrats, Senate Republicans, and Senate Democrats, just to give them a chance to get in any questions that they have and understand that. So we're hoping to do that the end of the month, beginning of February, prior to session starting on February 9th. So it gets a little crazy after the start of session with committee meetings and everything else, especially in the short session. So we are trying to work to accommodate their schedules. And of course, the staff has been amazing at making themselves available to help with any individual legislators that have been asking for a demo of the system, which we will make available. And I'm working on that, scheduling one right now. So there is that, and we've been looking at seeing if there's any potential legislative changes that we need. It looks like not so much this year, so we'll keep moving forward and our eye out. And I think that may be it at the moment. Andrea, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if there's anything you want to add.
No, there wasn't anything that I wanted to. I just hadn't taken it down yet because I'm about to ask for something else, and I'm looking for Nancy Barrow. Is Nancy on the call this morning or no?
She's on the call, but she's muted.
Okay.
Here she goes.
Nancy,
Oh, sorry.
If you would indulge me for one more moment over around the OEC report, Nancy, would you mind just speaking very briefly about your podcast series?
Yes, I'm very excited. Actually, we started the Paid Leave podcast. That's the name right now. It may change. We're not really sure, but right now it is the Paid Leave podcast. And the first initial episode was with our fearless leader right there, Andre Barton-Reeves. That happened on Monday. And then tomorrow I will have Representative Jeff Curry on to talk about organ donation along with the New England Donor Services. I'm friends with Caitlin Bernabucci there. And we're going to have Hartford Healthcare, the transplant coordinator on, And we are also going to have, hopefully, fingers crossed if it works, Jeff's organ donor on as well. And all of this is because that is covered if you qualify under Connecticut paid leave. So I'm excited about that. And I just heard from Laura Ray that she's working on the governor for me. So fingers crossed on that one. That may happen next week. So I'm very excited about the podcast. And if you have any ideas or any people that you think would be great on the podcast, I am all ears. So I'm looking forward to it, finally getting out there.
Any questions for Nancy? Excited to hear these podcasts. Where can we find your podcasts?
Yeah, it'll be everywhere. It's going to be on Buzzsprout. So Buzzsprout spreads it everywhere, but it'll also be on our YouTube page.
Thank you. I have a question for Jacqueline. As we go into the short session, these are all committee bills, but is there any legislation that's being contemplated that could impact us that is outside of our direction to the caucuses?
Right now, I don't see any, and I haven't heard any, but that doesn't mean anything yet. You know, the bills haven't been, as far as I can see, and I'll double check today, bills haven't been entered in yet. So, but I've got a tracking sheet prepared and ready to go so that we can start like watching out and seeing what's coming through. So at the moment, what is today? God, January 13th. Nothing yet, but I'm looking at what comes through. So, yeah.
Very good. Any other questions regarding outreach? Everybody, thank you for that. The next item on the agenda is finance and audit. Paul?
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to promptly turn it over to David to walk us through the authority's financial reports and give us sort of a check-in, mid-year check-in on where we are with respect to budget. So David, all yours.
Thank you, Paul. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As Paul mentioned, we're going to start off going over the financial results for the month of November. We'll have a preview of December expenditures, and then we will have a mid-year budget review, which will compare our budgets to where we expect to be by the end of the fiscal year. And then after that, we'll wrap it up with a brief discussion on what the next major initiative is in the finance area of the authority, that being fund recovery. So I'm going to share my screen. Could someone please acknowledge that they see it?
We can see your screen.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate the feedback. Okay, so for the month of November, total expenditures for the authority were $802,000. We are ahead of budget for the quarter so far by over $1.4 million. And the significant expenditures for the month of November were $353,000 for salaries, benefits, and taxes, $219,000 for our piece of the DOL appeals administration system. That went live this month in January.
Dave, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we can only see the bottom part of that spreadsheet.
Oh, here we go. Is that better, John?
That's better.
Okay, there we go. Okay, I just wanted to focus on the totals, John. Just keep it at high level, but if there's anything else you want to see, please let me know. Not a problem. Anyway, so where was I? Oh, $219,000 for the DOL appeals. That was paid out of bond money. $68,000 as we continue to refine the employee contribution system. $49,000 for licenses this month. $47,000 for the remainder of the audit fees for the annual financial audit that had been done, and $45,000 for our outreach efforts. Cumulatively to date, the authority has spent $19.1 million, a little over $6 million in the current fiscal year. And the makeup of the $19.1 million is $8.2 million for the employee contribution system, $1.5 million for the benefit claims system, $219,000 for the appeals system with DOL, $3.8 million for salaries and related expenses, $1.7 million for our support teams, $1.7 million for post-production support for our employee contribution system, and $544,000 for our outreach efforts thus far. Focusing on bond funds, since that's where most of the money has been spent, we did pay out $68,000 this month for our continued work on the employee contribution system. We did pay $219,000, as I mentioned, for our piece of the appeals administration with the Department of Labor. Our total contribution for that will be $450,000 in total. We do have another $450,000 for the Department of Labor to use should they need it if their own bond funding isn't in place by that time, and then they would pay us back once it's in place. But in total so far, we've spent just over $10 million of bond funds. We've got another $730,000 allocated or in the pipeline to be spent. So there would be about $1.4 million left available to the authority that's already been allocated and for us to use in the future. Focusing on our contribution activity for the month of November. November was a light month, relatively speaking. We got just under $1.1 million in contributions. We did our monthly repayment of the seed funds for $318,000. So that makes the trust balance just under $288 million as of November. Contribution history to date has been $300.4 million. And that was way ahead of our budgeted expectations. As you can see, we're just under $150 million ahead of where we thought we would be. And we expect to be on track to hit the $400 million number in contributions by the end of this month, as that's when ultimately the fourth quarter contributions are due. Taking a look at December, our expenditures for that period, we did make a $20 million payment from the contribution fund for the impressed funding deposit account at AFLAC. So AFLAC could make the benefit payments on time. So that was sent successfully, and they're ready to go. As far as other expenditures for the authority in December, we had spent $772,000, and that was $549,000 in salaries, $120,000 for the contact center, and $63,000 for outreach. Wanted to spend some time talking about where we expect to be by the end of the fiscal year for our mid-year budget review. So our fiscal year budget for ending June 30, 2022 is just over $15 million. Right now, based on the information we have, we believe that we will be spending $14.4 million. So just under $700,000 better than budget is where we expect to be by the end of the year. That's made up of a few things. The primary biggest driver of that is the grievance adjudication expense that we will be spending on with DOL, who are doing the appeals process for us. That came in about $1.1 million less than what we had budgeted. So that will put us ahead of the game. Temp usage, we think that will be less than what we budgeted. So that'll be about $350,000 better than budget. Our occupancy expense, when we eventually do get some space at Columbus Boulevard, that will be less than we budgeted, and that'll be about $265,000. Our processing fees that we use with Stripe is coming in less than we budgeted. That's at about $244,000. There were some variances that we do expect to come in higher than budget on a line item basis. The most significant one is our post-production work with Slalom. That will be about $1.4 million more than budget. That's primarily driven by a timing difference. We thought we'd be paying more of that in the prior fiscal year, but we didn't. We paid it in this fiscal year. Having said that, we do monitor our spending with Slalom very closely. They send us an update of what their spending is compared to the statement of work that we had signed with them. That covers both fiscal years, last year and the current year. And right now, the expectation is that we will not be spending any more than the original statements of work. So by the end of the fiscal year, for both fiscal years, we'll be right where we expect to be. We do expect to spend more for outreach, about $200,000 more than budgeted. We think we're going to need some more efforts in terms of employer outreach and just making sure they understand what their responsibilities are. And as we alluded to before, what they can do, what they can't do, and things like that. And the last remaining item was for the build out of office space. That'll be a little more than what we had budgeted for in terms of furniture and fixtures and things like that. That'll be about $84,000 more. But as I had mentioned, the occupancy, which is basically rent more or less that we would have to pay, was ahead of budget. So that'll cover any shortfall there. As far as where we expect to be in terms of the contribution budget, by the end of June, we think we'll be at about $233 million. Contributions coming in, we think there'll be about $413 million for the 12-month period, end of June. Claims benefit experience, we're just starting. As I mentioned to John before, we haven't even made any payments yet, but this is based on the latest actuarial study we got. Keep in mind that number also includes the $20 million deposit that we made in December. And we also are expecting a ramp up of activity in the early months until it settles down and things happen at a more normal rate. But basically, that's the best estimate we have right now. So like I said, by the end of June, we think we'll have $233 million, which is ahead of budget where we thought we would be when we set the budget a while ago. I just want to pause and ask if anyone has any questions about our financial results. Molly, I believe you have a question.
Yeah, so just I want to follow up on, you mentioned that contributions paid in are really significantly ahead of where we expected them to be. Like it looked like maybe they're twice what we thought they were going to be. And I wondered if you could elaborate on that a little more.
Sure, no problem. So when we did the budget and had been finalized around the April-May timeframe, they were just coming in. We really did not have an idea at the time of the budget what the contributions were going to be. So we took the most conservative estimate that the actuaries had prepared at the time because we didn't want to, shoot for the moon or anything like that. So, and that number was about between $250 and $275 million. So we're pleased to say that we're ahead of that, tracking at about $400 million now. But that's the reason why we were so ahead. We just didn't want to overpromise and underdeliver, especially with
we made a very conservative estimate of what we expected, and it turned out to reality was not conservative.
Right. And so, when we start next year's budget, we've got some history under our belts, so we'll be able to come up with something that is based on that prior history. Thank you for asking, Molly. I appreciate that. Anybody else? Okay.
Looks like you're good. Dave, thank you very much.
Oh, John?
Yes.
John, I just had one more topic I wanted to touch on, if that would be okay.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. At the Finance Committee, we discussed fund recovery, which defined is following up on employers who may or may not be aware of their responsibilities to pay contributions to the authority. So that's really going to be the next major initiative for the finance group in the next few months. That's not to say we haven't started that already. We've had outreach efforts to employers, making sure that they're registered, or making sure they're aware that they have to be registered and make contributions to the authority. We're also working with our third-party administrators, otherwise known as payroll providers, the ADPs of the world, to make sure that all their employers are registered and contributing, because we see that some of them are registered but are not contributing. So we're working with them to make sure that those contributions come in. And so over the next few months, we'll be mapping out our workflow, which we've actually started already, to define the policies and procedures we will need for fund recovery. That includes exploring options for using an outside fund recovery agency that's already contracted by the state. They have the expertise, know what they're doing, especially with the Fair Credit Practices Act, which is something you really have to know about, and that's not something that we ever intended here at the Paid Leave Authority to be experts on. So we'll be exploring that as an option as well. And we'll also be looking at determining our methodology that we'll need to determine our reserve for bad debt for audited financial purposes. And we'll be working with our outside auditors on that. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay, well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Next item on the agenda is our CEO report. Andrea, do you have a report to share?
I'm often in the same place every month. I do not. There are nothing that this extraordinary team hasn't already shared with you. There are a couple of things. We are actually launching a pilot program for small businesses with CBIA. So we've asked some businesses to, we've reached out to them proactively and said, if you in particular are really struggling with implementing FMLA or specifically paid family medical leave, give those questions to us through CBIA, and we'll see if we can contact you. If we can't contact you directly, to try to help walk you through that, because we do have a staff of 4 really extraordinary people who work on Amir's team who are able to help small businesses. You all know we don't have a call center, but we know that small businesses, those that have 74 or fewer employees, are new to not only paid leave like the rest of the state is, but they're also new to family and medical leave. So we want to make sure that we give them the support that they need. And that actually was all that I had to mention that had not been mentioned by everyone else on our team. I don't know if anyone has any questions for me.
Any questions? Molly? All right. Thank you, Andrea.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to old business. Is there any old business? Hearing none, is there any new business? I think we've reached the favorite time of the meeting. Is there an adjournment? All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
We are adjourned. The meeting is adjourned at 10:05. Thank you,
I'm sorry,
everybody.
before we all leave, who opposed the adjournment?
Sal Luciano.
Thank you, Sal.
And Isha, you seconded? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.